Welcome to the Eyes on Film podcast, the podcast for seasoned cinephiles and budding movie buffs alike. I'm Bubba, and I'm old.
I'm Bella, and I'm not. We are lifelong movie lovers, and we thought we'd share some of our wisdom and insanity with all of you. So grab a snack, a cozy blanket, your furry friend, or whatever makes you happy, and enjoy the show. And action.
Nice. Well, how are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited. This is our second episode.
I'm so excited
I know,
too.
right?
And
So cool.
do you want to introduce the movie?
I could introduce the movie in alphabetical order, beginning with S.
Yes.
Yeah. No, today's movie arguably could be what I consider to be my favorite movie. And what?
Me
You were going to
too.
say something.
I was
Yeah.
going to say me too.
It's a classic. And it's might be one of the most talked about movies, period, ever. Like, I think more people have probably discussed The Shining and put more effort into The Shining. What's the movie we're going to do?
The Shining.
I let the cat out of the bag. Yeah, The Shining. So, yeah, we're going to do The Shining. Incredible movie. A classic. So much has been talked about with this movie. We're going to try and give you our take on it and some other different, maybe some alternate insight to what you heard before, but we're going to do it our way because that's what we do. So do you want to go through the basics of the movie?
I would be happy to.
Sure.
As Bubba said, the movie is called The Shining. It was released in 1980, directed by Stanley Kubrick. It has a runtime of 144 minutes.
Yeah, so it's a pretty long movie, so you're in it for a while.
Totally worth it, though. I would.
Oh,
even if it was 5 hours, I would watch it.
I would just watch it twice.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, maybe I should
Why
do
not?
that. 5 hours of The
Right,
Shining,
exactly.
a dream.
So, a no-name cast or no?
Mixed. I would say mixed. There are a few
Okay.
big names on there. I'll go through them if that's okay. So our star of the show and one of my favorite actors is Jack Nicholson playing Jack Torrance. Really an amazing performance in this. We'll talk about that.
And no confusing name changes for him, which is probably why he did so well.
Exactly. I agree. Next, we have Shelley Duvall as Wendy Torrance, Jack Torrance's wife. Next, we have Danny Lloyd as Danny Torrance. Again, no crazy name changes there. Probably contributes to how great his performance was, but who knows? He plays Jack Torrance's and Wendy Torrance's son. And then we have Scatman Crothers as Dick Halloran. I don't know a lot about Scatman Crothers. Bubba knows a little bit more.
Yep. We'll talk about that a little bit too.
Then we have Philip Stone as Delbert Grady, Joe Turkel as Lloyd, Bubba's favorite
Joseph
character.
Turkel died in 22. I didn't even realize that.
It's Joseph. Oops. He died in...
Joseph in 2022. I didn't even realize it.
Oh,
Yeah.
no. That's so
Yes.
sad. Oh, all right. And then last but not least, Barry Nelson as Stuart Ulman.
I'm sorry, did you say Sean Connery?
Barry Nelson. How deaf
Oh,
are you?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Did you say Roger Moore?
Barry Nelson.
Eh? Oh, why do I keep thinking about James Bond movies or actors when you mention Barry Nelson?
Barry Nelson was the first ever on-screen James Bond, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely. I know. I didn't know that. I thought
Neither
that is
did
like
I.
the coolest thing. And I watched it for the first time. And when I found that out, in doing research for this podcast, I discovered that. And I was like, wow, that is a really cool, fun fact. Unbelievable. Anyway, so, and
James Bond is
Is
one
this
of
a-
our favorite series of movies, so this was a
yeah.
big deal for us. You know, a connection between
Totally.
The Shining and James Bond. It's kind of amazing. No big deal.
It's Shining bonding. That was awful.
It was horrible. Not your worst.
Yeah, not my worst.
No.
There's plenty more to come. So this is what was the genre on this? Where would you place it?
Probably a rom-com.
Rom-com. Meet cute.
No, this is a horror. maybe a quintessential horror movie. If you're at
Yes.
all into horror, you must have seen this movie or at least heard of it.
And if you haven't, you need to. Spoiler alert, like this show is all about, we talk about the movie all the way through. If you don't want spoilers, don't watch until you watch it, because we
Well
talk about
said.
everything in it.
Well
Yeah.
put.
Yeah, exactly. I'm eloquent today at this moment. This gray hair is just getting out of control. Look at that. Sorry.
You could have no hair.
That's true. That's true. He's so handsome, though.
He is. He's a very handsome
It's a little
boy.
guy. So yeah, so this is a horror. This is I think the benchmark for horror movies
Absolutely.
and for most movies, to be honest, including dramas and just filmmaking in general. It really is just.
It's an incredibly
piece of
well-made
art.
film. Absolutely.
It is. It's a crafted movie.
You know,
yeah,
if you
it's not just something slapped together. This is a lot went into this.
absolutely
in
planning.
so many levels. So you're really good at like telling this stuff. So I'm just going to ask you, can you give a brief summary of the plot?
Absolutely. The film starts with Jack Nicholson going for an interview at the Overlook Hotel. It's immediately pretty creepy. He gets the job and then he brings his family up to the hotel. They all get a little cabin fevery, and then Jack meets some people who aren't there. And
Madcap hijinks ensue.
Yes. There's a lot of
Yeah.
strange after that. Surprisingly, not
Yeah.
a very gory movie at all, though.
No, not a lot of gore. There is a lot of blood,
Yes,
but not a lot of gore.
disembodied
There's a
blood.
lot of suspense. Yes, there are only 2 people who die in this movie,
It's so crazy.
which is crazy. Like, it's kind of mind-boggling to think how good of a horror movie this is with only 2 people dying in the movie. So basically what happens is Jack Nicholson's character, goes for an interview to be a caretaker for a hotel in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. And there's a lot of like supernatural horror and all that stuff that goes on within this. And the main themes, I think, of this movie, I would say, so I think there's themes with like children and parenting is one that creates horror, and themes of alcoholism. There's like a lot of stuff that goes on in this movie. What any themes that like kind of stick out for you?
I'd say addiction is definitely one of the heavier ones in there. I think also
Abusive, toxic relationships.
Yeah.
You could say. I mean, and this is all
absolutely.
stuff based in sort of the reality part of the movie, if you can say that. It's not all just supernatural. It's based on, basic fears and basic problems that occur in life. And
Right.
I think that's what makes this so scary, is because in so many ways, a lot of what happens in The Shining is also relatable
Absolutely.
to a lot of people. Like, but so I think it's very interesting in that regard. Creativity wise, where would you put this movie?
This is an incredibly creative movie. It was based on The Shining by Stephen King and then adapted to film. There are a lot of major changes from the book to the film, which I think is really creative, recognizing when something would work better on film, or when something, a scene or a character interaction in a book doesn't work for a film, realizing that and being able to change it but still stay true to the essence of the story. I'd say that's really creative.
We've discussed before, Stephen King did not like this as an adaptation of his book at all. It changes the book quite a bit. Although you also found out and told me that he actually did like the movie as a standalone.
I read the book a few years ago. It was interesting to read it and to learn more about the characters I saw on screen. However, I do personally think the movie was better. I know that's not something people say very often, but so much of the story is just silent moments or a character thinking, and reading that is sometimes more difficult than seeing it on screen. And Jack Nicholson specifically does a really great job with portraying thought. which I think is incredible.
The movie itself was its own piece. I know the ideas came from Stephen King, the basic premises from Stephen King, but I really think Stanley Kubrick made this his own, full stop. I'm just going to leave it at that. He made it his own.
Absolutely. He in
Yeah.
his contract, he stated specifically that he needed to rewrite it and that it had to be different from the book. So he definitely saw it as his own project and as something separate from the book itself, which is why
Yeah.
we won't be talking about the book a whole lot in this, especially since,
Yeah.
to be honest, neither of us really enjoyed the book all that much. So
Yeah, no, the book is okay. And I've seen other remakes of The Shining that are more faithful to the book, which, to be honest, I wasn't crazy about. I don't think anybody's been able to do justice or create this story in such a way that can come anywhere close to what this movie ultimately became.
two things
So
I wanted to say there.
touch
One,
on, yeah, sure.
I didn't know there were other remakes. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. There was a limited TV series of The Shining. There were offshoots and adaptations, such as like Doctor Sleep. It's a sequel to it based on the Stephen King book.
Of the same name. There
And
was also a Doctor
of
Sleep
it,
book.
yes, yeah, and we can review Doctor Sleep at another time, but I think that's a movie that tried to cover both worlds of it and didn't nail either one, in my opinion. I don't know. Some people like it. You like the movie Doctor Sleep?
Meh. It was entertaining. I didn't think it came anywhere close to The Shining. It was an entertaining movie. The Shining, I think, like you said earlier, is art. It blows me away every time I watch it. Every time I watch it, I see something new. It's rare to find films like that.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to bring up was the idea of auteurship, or an auteur director
What's an
who.
auteur? I'm sorry, if
I'm
you could
so
just give a
happy you
definition of
asked.
auteur
I'm
for
so
our
happy
audience.
you asked. An auteur is a director who has basically total control over the entire production of a film, including music, the script, acting, just almost complete an entire creative control. Stanley Kubrick, I think, is one of the most successful auteur directors of more modern film. This isn't, a new movie at all, but films were becoming prevalent around the 1910s, 1920s. Auteur directors came about when film was becoming an actual commercial success. So in the more modern era, because this came out in 1980, Stanley Kubrick would be considered modern as far as film goes. So, yep.
So the performances of the main actors, I think we should kind of go through them a little
I
bit.
agree.
And we're just going to talk about sort of the quality and I think in the depth of the performances, what we liked about the performances of the, the principal players. We're not going to go through everybody, but, like the doctor, like, I don't really care. But
Although I do love that scene. Nice.
That is, yeah. I love every scene in the movie.
Yeah, me too.
So let's start with Jack Nicholson. What about his performance? I think his performance was extremely layered.
He has this face, I think, where he's very good at controlling like little changes in expression.
Like micro expressions.
Micro expressions, yes. It's remarkable. Specifically that scene, which I think is both of our favorite scenes, where he's staring out from inside the Overlook and he's got like, that kind of it's a very Kubrick stare.
Yeah, the 1,000-yard stare.
Yeah, through the eyebrows. Like it's so creepy. But it does show up in Kubrick's other films, which I think is really interesting. Yeah, in A Clockwork Orange, actually, you see it
that's
quite
right.
a bit. Yeah, and then it's come up in other media, like in Wednesday, with Jenna Ortega. Tim Burton loved that 1,000-yard stare, had her do it a lot for Wednesday, which I think was really, really cool. But Jack Nicholson, I think he really made that look his own. It's definitely a Kubrick staple, but Jack Nicholson killed it. It was so creepy and unnerving, and you can see him thinking and just, and he's not moving or doing anything. He's just staring. It's remarkable to be able to convey that much in just a look. I'm so blown away, so impressed.
I think his performance in range was really incredible in that. Even from the very beginning when he went in for the interview, he seemed like personable and just kind of easy to talk to. And then even with that, you saw like some micro changes in his personality. He was kind of taking you on a little bit of a ride there where you're looking at him going, what is he thinking? What's going on? You can definitely tell he's thoughtful about something, but you can't latch on to what he's quite feeling there. So he's great with that. He's great with the absolute rage when he's, with the axe. Like the emotion that he has, that fevered, just unmitigated rage. Just at every point where he's relating with people or just being, he takes it on a different level, and the changes in his personality are palpable. Like they're big changes, and it's not big changes like over dramatic changes or chewing the scenery kind of changes. It's changes where you can see emotional change.
The first example of that comes to mind is when he has a nightmare and Wendy comes to wake him up.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
He goes from he wakes up from this dream where he's killed his family, and Wendy comes over to comfort him, and he's saying how it was the worst dream he'd ever had, and he's terrified, and it's awful. And then Danny comes in, and his clothes are all ripped up, and Wendy loses it, thinks Jack assaulted him, and you see Jack just change from, I don't even know what
There was just this and his whole face was like dripping off of his head.
Yes.
Like it's
terrifying. And you can see that we've lost whatever shred of goodness Jack had after that. I think that's one of the most pivotal scenes in the movie, because that's where we lose him. That's where Wendy loses him.
And there's the most evidence of something really crazy just happening. Like as they would say in Fight Club, we've just lost cabin pressure. Like it's just everything's been sucked out of the room, and it's just, you're like, what is happening now?
Terrifying.
Absolutely terrifying. Yeah. And he's so terrifying in that movie in so many ways. Even to the point where like and this is sort of where I saw his change go from keeping up the facade of being a good guy to just going off in a different direction, is when he's typing in that giant room, and Wendy comes in to do a sweet thing and something very nice and brought him sandwiches or something, or just to say hi and check in on him, how's it going and all that stuff. And he just turns on her and gets nasty and just flat out mean. Any and all facade of being a decent guy just kind of goes out the window. And I saw that for me as the turning point, as the very first turning point of where he has lost control of who he is, or lost control of holding up that facade of being a good person.
Yes.
It just let it all go. And I remember feeling so sad for Wendy in that situation. I was like, wow, that's just so mean and such an awful thing to do and such a horrible way to be to somebody. And
to your wife.
But then there's also to your wife, But then, on the same token, there's like, where there's like the creative part, where, we're editing videos or we're doing something, you're working, you're trying to write, and writing's really hard. And then somebody comes in and breaks your train of thought. So you kind of identify, I think, with that frustration. Not that you're necessarily mad at the person, but you're kind of like, oh, I just trying to get out this idea, or just trying to do this one thing, or whatever it is you're doing. Like as you're cleaning the house and somebody interrupts you, or you're trying to make dinner and the dog goes to the bathroom on the floor or something like that. Like just anything that kind of like interrupts your flow.
Sorry.
So I think
Like that.
Yeah, exactly. Like you get somebody coughing in the middle of your podcast. I guess that scene in the movie kind of made it like, it's what made it even scarier, is because you can identify with his feelings of frustration, and then him just letting go and not being thoughtful, and just letting go of the facade. And I think that makes it scary, because I think it makes you kind of think, oh, do I have that in me? Or, is that something I would do to somebody? Or, or I would never do that. But it kind of gives you
Would
that
I?
little,
Yeah.
would I? Yeah. I mean, it brings up that angst. And then just the horrible feelings for Wendy, where she's, just been treated so poorly by Jack. And you just feel so bad for her. And I think that's why that scene for me is one of the more, the biggest turning points, I guess, or one of the most emotionally grabbing parts of the movie for me.
Relating.
Relating to all of those people and all of those situations. And yeah, I watched the movie yesterday, and I was kind of going through that in my head. I'm like, trying to, because that scene really hit me. And I was like, I started analyzing why it hit me so hard. And I think it was those things where every emotion and everything that's being done, you kind of relate to in one way or another. And I think that's what makes it scary. And I think that's so brilliantly done.
I agree.
And
100%.
I think Kubrick thinks about that stuff, or thought about that stuff. And I think that's what makes this so great. I'm not trying to project, but if you look at the motivation of a filmmaker, why would he add all that stuff? You have to think, he is thinking, I'm going to make this scary. How do I make this scary? How do I make people cringe at this? And I really have a feeling that's kind of where he was going, because he is a writer, right? Kubrick is a writer. So he's sitting there, and I think he's thinking into himself of, there's a part of me in Jack.
There's a part of everyone,
you know what I mean?
in Jack.
In Jack. And so I'm guessing when he was writing that, I have nothing to base this on other than my own intuition, is that when he's writing that, and I think if Stanley Kubrick is working in his office and somebody comes in to interrupt him, and he's in the middle of doing something great or something horrible, and he can't get through it, and they interrupt him, I'm sure that's where that came from. It just has to be.
That's I think that's a really good analysis of that. And we were talking about how Kubrick just thinks about so many things, and we were having a conversation about The Shining. Bubba had brought up this really amazing point that the whole movie is really from Danny's perspective. Most of the angles are from about a child's eye level, and he's watching his parents go through this horrible, toxic, abusive relationship, seeing things he shouldn't see that upset him. I think Kubrick thought about that as well, how upsetting just watching your parents fight is anyway, and everyone's parents fight, but then watching your father try to kill your mother and turn on her in such a horrific way, and then turn on you, that's terrifying. You want more than anything to trust your parents, and Danny can't. So Kubrick forcing us into his perspective, I think, really instills that fear, which is genius and such a amazing thing that you pointed out. I don't know that I would have thought of that on my own. It was what a great detail to spot.
Thank you. Having Shelley Duvall play the foil, or the the mate to Jack Nicholson, was a brilliant stroke. She got a lot of criticism for that role.
I
And
didn't know that.
yeah, people thought she was kind of just like, we can kind of, like it was just kind of, people didn't see her as like a modern woman, at the time. She got a lot of backlash for everything in that movie, like on set. We won't get into that whole thing right now, but she got a lot of criticism and, oh, what a weak person. And she just looked so, like just drawn out and like, but there was so much gentle in her and sweet in her character. And to have somebody just so cool, just on a personal relationship aspect of that, I thought it was really good casting. Oh, actually, I'm going to go back to a quick point about Danny. I think Danny already had a lot of fear of his father because of the incident where he dislocated his shoulder. So he's already dealing with this like sort of unstable dad and fear of his father already. And I think that was also very telling and relatable and all that kind of stuff too. I think he really, as crazy as it sounds, I really think Kubrick made this movie with empathy in mind.
I honestly, I really agree with you. We can talk more later about some behind the scenes things, but I do have a few points I want to make about that. But
Okay.
I love what you said about Shelley Duvall. I think her kindness and her sweetness, even when Jack was treating her badly, showed so much strength. I don't know if I ever saw Wendy as a weak or flighty character. I think I always saw her as someone who had a lot going on. But in the
Yeah,
end,
I did too. But the overall feeling at the time was like, oh my God, Wendy's so weak. Like, she was just, and I think that was just sort of like a view from 30,000 feet.
it was a surface level thing. I
Yeah, it
don't,
just wasn't
yeah,
looked like. I don't think people really gave her performance the attention that it deserves.
because it is great. She's
Yeah,
so convincing. The dedication that she put into it, it was so well done.
yeah,
When she's confronting Jack about needing to take Danny to a hospital, she's so desperate just to get her son better. Just the desperation is bursting out of her. It's palpable. You can feel it. You empathize so much. And then Jack just cuts her off at every turn, and it's devastating.
yeah, yeah.
Watching, I was just going to say, showing devastation, an actor portraying being devastated and crushed and destroyed is really difficult. And
Absolutely.
watching her persevere through that it's a remarkable performance. I absolutely agree. She deserves more recognition and praise for it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think that was an incredible performance. Um, and Danny Lloyd, I know you know a lot more about the behind the scenes stuff with Danny Lloyd than I do, but just on first take, and I'm sorry, Danny, I don't know you at all. Whatever, you were kind of a creepy look.
So
You were,
creepy.
at least in
So
that movie.
creepy. Absolutely.
I'm sure you're a really nice guy and everything. And I've seen pictures of you now as you're older, but yeah, just in that movie you did, he's kind of a creepy kid. So I will say that you played the role fantastically, and I can't see it with anybody else. Like I can't imagine anybody else doing the job that you did.
I have to ask, just a quick
Yeah.
side note. Your high school paper what was the title again?
So my senior paper in high school was the role of demonic children in the novels of Stephen King.
Ugh,
And
love.
so I've studied a lot of Stephen King in the role of kids in these dysfunctional, evil roles or whatever they are. I was referencing a lot of like The Shining and Salem's Lot, stuff like that. So it's always been sort of a matter of interest for me to bring that out and recognize that as he does use it as a device, but it's also very well done. And again, I'm going to say with Stephen King as well, I think he writes children very well and with empathy and with respect, to be honest. So if you want to, the movie with 2 letters, I don't know if you want me to mention it because it freaks you out, but
there are only a few movies that we won't talk about on here. That is one of them.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of them. That it is one of them. Sorry. But he treats all the kids with respect in these movies, and I respect that in him. And I think that Danny's portrayal by Danny Lloyd and curated by Kubrick. What? Danny. Yeah, which Danny are you talking about?
Yeah.
But I think we're done really well. I think it would be interesting to hear a little bit about how Kubrick handled Danny Lloyd in that.
I would be happy to talk about it.
Please.
We don't know everything, so if I'm wrong about any of this, I apologize, but this is my understanding of how it went. Apparently on set, Kubrick was very protective of Danny Lloyd. He made an effort to make sure that Danny wasn't scarred or disrupted or upset by this film because it was supposed to be so scary and so upsetting. So most of the scenes where Danny witnesses something, Danny Lloyd isn't actually looking at anything scary. He's performing, which I think makes his performance even more remarkable because it's so convincing, but he's not actually seeing anything scary. The scene where the twins are shown, which is funny because they're actually sisters, but it's always referred to as the Grady twins. But the scene where the twins are showed, chopped up and dismembered and there's blood everywhere, Danny Lloyd never saw that. He saw the twins, but he never saw the blood, the gore, anything like that. And I think, to your point, this movie was made with so much empathy. I think Stanley Kubrick, for all his faults, and there were many, really tried to show a realistic, dysfunctional family and to protect the children involved in the film. I think that says something. And it was always something that was important to me to know that Danny was protected on set. Because honestly, that movie could scar anyone. I mean, it scarred Shelley Duvall. But Danny's okay.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
As I understand it, Danny Lloyd wasn't even aware it was a horror movie.
No.
As far as I know, he thought it was like a drama.
Yes, he saw a heavily edited end version. It was very, very different.
Yeah. So I thought that was very, very interesting. Scatman and Crothers is Dick Halloran.
I think he's my favorite character. Well, I don't know. They're all my favorite.
It's hard to have a favorite character. Yeah, it's hard to have a favorite.
Would you say this is a chamber piece, going back to genre?
Yeah, so technically a chamber piece should take place in one room, or in one small area. Like,
okay.
Technically, like a really,
like a true chamber piece.
If you're going to be strict about the term chamber piece, that would be it. But I would also call this a chamber piece, where it's very small cast, secluded location, that kind of thing. So I would put it in the chamber piece genre, which, to be honest, are some of my favorite movies. Like, I love chamber pieces.
The Thing.
But yeah, I think all that stuff. Rope, Glengarry Glen Ross. I love that kind of stuff. 12 Angry Men.
I have to watch that, actually.
You do have to watch that. It's a great movie. That is like 12 Angry Men is the quintessential chamber piece, where it's deciding on a case.
I love that. Oh, that sounds so
that's
interesting.
like the quintessential chamber piece. So yeah, you need to watch 12 Angry Men.
Okay.
So yeah, I would call it a chamber piece. But Scatman Crothers, he's not in the movie for a long period of time. Has a pivotal role. He plays the chef who shows Wendy around, and
Danny's with her.
and Danny and creates a relationship between him and Danny.
Mr. Halloran is the first person to talk to Danny about The Shining, the supernatural powers that Danny has. Danny's very tight-lipped about it. He has his little imaginary friend, Tony.
He's not here right now, Mrs. Torres.
Are we going to talk about Tony right now?
Yeah. It's so...
The little boy that lives in his mouth.
And then goes down to his stomach to hide. It's so creepy.
Yeah.
And then but Dick Halloran also has The Shining and uses it with Danny. And Danny's initially really freaked out. He doesn't know if he can trust him because Tony's always telling him not to tell anyone. Mr. Halloran creates a lifeline for Danny, which Danny uses later in the film and gets him back up to the Overlook, which doesn't end well for Halloran.
Flew all that way.
Bundled up like E.T. in the snowcat.
Like
yeah.
So
great.
My God, poor Dick Halloran.
But Scatman Crothers, he did a really great job. He was jovial and approachable and almost goofy with Danny's parents, but with Danny, he was still cheerful and friendly, but he became more serious, and you could see in his face that he knew some things. He had some wisdom to offer, which was a really great switch between those two characters. You see different sides of all the characters with different interactions throughout this film. Yeah.
I feel like he just had so little time with Danny that I think he felt like, you know what, I got to get this kid some ice cream and we got to get down to business and we need to talk about what's going on.
Yep.
And because he knew, I think he knew what the stakes were, and I think he knew how long they were going to be there, and I think he was like, I got to do something now. I gotta
help this kid.
I gotta say something. I gotta help this kid somehow.
I also wonder,
warn him and give him some coaching.
Yeah, I also wonder if he could sense from Jack that there was something amiss there. I've always
That's a good question.
I've always wondered that if Halloran could sense that Jack had some kind of vulnerability or something about him that the hotel would latch on to, and that's why he was so determined. Yeah, and that's why he was so determined to talk to Danny.
So you know more of the book than I do. I read it so long ago I don't really remember. But quick question is, does Jack have The Shining?
I don't know. I don't remember.
I'm suspecting he does.
I always have felt like he does. I always felt like it was a family thing because Halloran talks about how his grandmother and him would have those conversations. So I always thought it was within families. So I think that Jack does. It's never mentioned explicitly in the film. I don't know about the book, to be honest.
I think that's what creates Jack's vulnerability to all these evil spirits and the supernatural aspect of it. I think that's what it was, like the virus that got in. Like,
mm-hmm.
and I think that's why he became what he became.
I agree with you. Well, it's made clear that Danny is also very vulnerable when he goes into room 237. He was drawn in, so we do know that The Shining makes you vulnerable, but it also makes you aware. I think Jack's downfall came from the fact that he was never aware of it, that he was never able to identify it, which could have led to his alcoholism. It could have led to a lot of things. But that's what I love so much about this movie is there are so many questions and so many things you can theorize, and there's so much to talk about. It takes place in such a small period, and it's such a specific story. But you really wonder about the greater ramifications.
The totality of it, like the back, and the backstory. You know, the Overlook being built on a
An
Indian
American
burial
burial
ground.
ground. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so much there, and so many bad things that had happened in that hotel, and how the hotel became in itself its own character.
It 100% is. That's another thing I love, is that the hotel is a living, breathing thing.
Yeah, it really is.
It's
It's great.
remarkable. And Dick Halloran's little short explanation of it, you know, it's like toast.
Yes.
Come on, do it.
Yeah. It leaves. Yeah, it's like toast. Did it come through? The whistle? Toast.
Yeah, I heard it. I hear it. That's awesome.
So I hear it every time he whistles when he says toast.
If someone burns toast,
But these things leave residue and they change the
Yeah.
place. And
Yeah.
to be honest, I think that's true on a certain level. I don't believe in ghosts and things like that, but I think when something bad happens, it leaves a mark. It affects things. It's whatever negativity someone puts out in the world, it does create a
Seem to come
larger
back.
effect. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The butterfly effect, as it were. But maybe sort of, I don't want to get too deep into philosophy, but like as far as like karma and stuff like that. But Scatman and Crothers, just a quick
Back
thing.
to what
He
we were
was-
talking about.
Yeah, he was a like a jazz musician, and he was known for scatting, skibbity-doo-wop, bop, all that kind of stuff. But he was famous in his own right for that. I'll see if I can
Wow.
throw in a clip here or something, but we'll see what we can
Yeah.
find. Philip Stone is Delbert Grady.
I think
One of
this
my
is a
favorites.
really overlooked performance. I think this is a
Oh my
really
God.
underappreciated performance. He had what, maybe less than 10 minutes of screen time? Like
I think he was one of the more terrifying figures in that entire movie.
that scene where he's talking to Jack in the bathroom is horrifying. So many of the undercurrents of like the feelings, the racism, some of the misogyny that Jack has in
Yeah.
him comes out,
Oh,
and
a
it's
lot.
validated and then encouraged to a homicidal level. It's terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah. But what a great job. And anytime I've seen him in a movie other than The Shining, I lose track of that movie because I start thinking about him in The Shining. So I have to, invariably like go back, rewind, and then watch the scene a couple more times just because I keep losing track every time. But what a terrifying figure he was, like,
Oh my
just
goodness.
and so well acted. And you can, because he's the caretaker who murdered
Well,
his family, and well, Jack
Jack's
has always
always
been
been
the caretaker, but he was the previous caretaker, and the one who killed the twins, his daughters, and that stuff. And you can see his simmering rage when he's talking to Jack, and he could very easily just pick up the axe and take off where Jack left it there, right at the avocado. Like, he could just start doing his own thing. Yeah.
Crazy. So
But
crazy.
yeah, what a great character. Just anyway, jaw dropping. Joe Turkel, or Joel, Joseph Turkel.
Joseph
Is it
Turkel.
Joel or Joseph?
I
Joseph
think
Turkel.
I wrote it wrong.
Yeah, no, that's okay. As Lloyd, the bartender, one of my favorite characters in the whole film, and
Yes.
the interaction between Nicholson and Joseph Turkel, I think, was just amazing. Just those bar scenes for me were some of the best in the entire movie. I
You
think
quote them all the time. Like,
all the time. Yes, I do. I love those. But his character, I feel, was more pivotal than people give it credit for. I don't think he was just the bartender.
Oh, I haven't heard your
Yeah.
thoughts on this, so tell me.
I have a feeling that I think he might have been the pivotal evil presence there. I think Grady got a lot of the credit for being the guy. But I think Grady and Jack were the instruments. And I think who knows all the secrets? Who knows everything
Bartenders.
that's happened? It's the bartender. I really think that Lloyd, the bartender, was the guy.
I have this theory that because of everything that's happened in the hotel, I feel like Lloyd is the hotel personified.
Okay, yeah. I mean, absolutely. That's a good way of putting it. But I think I think everything was distilled down to Lloyd. I think Lloyd
Okay.
knew everybody's secrets. I think Lloyd knew everybody's weaknesses, their vices, their, you know what I mean? He knew everything that was going on, and he never outwardly made a judgment. He never, there was nothing like demonstrable about his behavior and, what he did. But I think everything culminated into Lloyd. So either Lloyd personified was the person or was the culmination of everything that went on in that hotel. But I think Lloyd ultimately orchestrated everything.
I like that.
Because if you think about it, the real evil first came out, or the real sort of supernatural part of it came out when Jack went into that ballroom, the gold room, and he had that drink. And once he had that drink with Lloyd, that was the
deal with the devil, so to speak.
That was the deal with the devil. And then at that point, he was over the edge because he had taken that drink. You know what I mean? He was the conduit that opened up that supernatural level of stuff, I think, in the movie. And so that, for me, has always just grabbed me as such a great scene and great scenes, like just where he, Nicholson, and the way he treats Lloyd, the way Lloyd plays his part opens up to Lloyd, and how he says a ton of stuff. And he would tell you, oh, Lloyd's a great guy. I know everything about Lloyd, if you were a real bartender. And Lloyd's never said anything to him. And it was through Lloyd's silence that he learns everything. And I think, when Lloyd said to him, your money's no good here, and Lloyd's not showing any cards at all, ever. And I think Lloyd is the culmination, or the distillery of all that.
I agree.
So Barry Nelson is Stuart Ulman, who is the hotel manager that Jack interviews with, and is probably the most straight-laced, normal role in the whole thing, but he's remarkably well cast.
Really well cast, yeah.
Yeah, and even when he's telling Jack about the murders in the hotel, and he goes, and he chopped up his family with Max. Like, he's just like, you could tell the guy's a salesman. That's just what he does.
Yes.
In the hotel, because it was selected because of its natural beauty. The area was selected because of his natural beauty. Like, you can tell he's pitched before, and everything to him is a pitch. Although he wasn't hard selling Jack, I think he was hopeful in his pitch. You know what I mean? But he did a really excellent job, I thought.
He really did. I think also there was a deleted scene at the end of the movie. We talked about it briefly, but there's no like deleted scene footage of it, but there is audio, which is kind of cool.
Oh,
and
awesome.
Ulman shows up. It's at the end of the movie. Wendy and Danny have escaped, and it's in the hospital, and Ulman is talking to Wendy just about what had happened. So I'm curious to see how Ulman would have, or how Barry Nelson would have, how he played that. I'm really,
yeah.
That's something I've always wondered about. If
Yeah.
Is he in on it a little bit? Is he covering some things up? I've always been super curious.
I think he's just the guy in the middle. Corporate said, see this guy? He seemed okay. I hired him. He killed his family. What am I going to do?
He's
Just a guy. So I think he played it so well. Like, how do you pitch a job where the last guy just murdered his whole
That's
family?
insane.
Yeah. And so I think he played that
And
really
how
well.
are you?
And he was the first on-screen James Bond. So how can you not like the guy?
Slayberry Nelson, you killed it.
Flavor.
So those are all the main characters. There are other characters, but none of them
Drive the plot.
Yeah. Or
every performance in there is very. Oh, I want to kind of go back and ask you, at the end or near the end is the only time Wendy sees the ghost. So how do you think that manifested itself? You think it just was getting so much energy from Jack and it just was able to manifest these ghosts? Or
I think the hotel likes to play. I think it likes to show you enough where you're skeeved out and worried and make you uncomfortable. I think it feeds off discomfort and fear and things like that, which, given Stephen King's books and how he creates a lot of characters that feed off of those kinds of emotions, that seems plausible to me as the original, reasoning, that the hotel just feeds off that and it collects people like that. But I think more than anything, the hotel just enjoys.
It's just playing.
Yeah, I think it's just playing. And I think at that point, Wendy was so overwhelmed with awful things happening that adding that onto it very well could have just sent her over the edge. It didn't. She stayed strong for Danny, which is impressive. But I think she was just playing. I think the hotel was just playing. I think it was just a cat with a toy. It was just
that's really good analysis. I like that.
Thank you.
That's cool.
Did you have a different theory?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess the way I thought about it when I watched it yesterday was that it was getting so much energy from Jack and Danny and Wendy's emotion. It generated enough energy to let her in on the joke, as it were. You know what I mean? Like it just it brought her into that fold.
Interesting.
I like your explanation better.
Do you? I do. I like it too.
Yeah, I do.
I think
like
for the film it makes sense because it seems like that's what the hotel is doing. And with the hedge maze, I think that's a very similar thing where it's like leading you into its heart, and you can get there, but it's let you out. Really hard. Exactly.
Yeah, it doesn't want to let you out. And as you're looking at that aerial view of it, sorry, so you can see my hands. So you're looking at that aerial view of it.
I don't want to see your hands.
Just keeps getting the maze just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think that's represented in how again, back to your point, that the hotel is just playing with you. It's playing games. It's having fun. It's amusing itself. I think that's a really interesting.
I think that explains a lot of the inconsistencies that people see in the movie. And I see a lot of people saying it's a mistake. And I'm like, do you know who Stanley Kubrick is?
Yeah.
The man could not make a mistake.
No.
He was so...
Right, okay. Go ahead.
Oh.
No, I was just going to say, so is there anything in this movie that you don't?
I have to actually really think hard about that.
I have one thing.
You have one thing. Okay. I feel like I have to come up with something.
No, you don't have to come up with anything.
No, I can't. I loved all of it.
Yeah. So the one thing I don't like, and it's just literally seconds on screen, is near the end, like when things are just going crazy and they're having all the weird flashes of the spirits and all that stuff, is when they flash to the hotel with all the skeletons sitting around having like drinks and cocktails.
What, you don't? Why?
I'm like, well, that's what? I don't know. It just didn't. It didn't seem necessary to me. Like it was almost kitschy.
I think I'm going to
I'm
make
sure
the
it was
same.
there for a reason.
I think I'm going to make the same point I made about. I'm going to make the same point. It's absurd.
Right. Just the whole absurdity of it.
I think that's also why I love those two movies so much, is they are just absurd. And
Yeah.
I think, at least for Kubrick, I'm sure in Alien it was, a special effects thing. I don't think it was purposeful.
Yeah.
But in The Shining, that I feel like was a decision.
It sure was.
To make it,
I just don't understand it. Like I'm like,
it's letting the audience know that the characters are in on the joke. They know how crazy this is. There's
yeah. And they're like all hanging out. Can you imagine if we showed her a room of still like another?
It's playing. The hotel is playing. And that's how would that happen? That wouldn't happen. That probably didn't even happen in the hotel because they're all mid-drink or.
Yeah,
I think it's the hotel playing.
Oh yeah, okay. I'll accept that.
You still don't like it?
100%. I don't know. I'll watch it again with that in mind. I will. I swear. I'll with that in mind. But that's kind of like the only thing that I swear to God, the entire. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I go, what? Like and that's okay. But when I always see that, I go, what?
I can definitely
just the
see how
absurdity of it. I could see that.
But I can see how that would bring you out of it because it is such a crafted film. Seeing something like that, like a Halloween,
it's so kitschy, like a Halloween store. Like
I can see that. I can see that.
I can see what you're saying, where the hotel is just playing games and like literally like having a laugh. I could see like Lloyd and Grady sitting around and going, should we? Should we?
Like, come on.
Come on. Let's just do it. Oh, it's so great.
I think my reasoning for that kind of thing where I can explain that kind of stuff is growing up whenever there was an inconsistency in a movie, and I was really good at picking them up. I was really good at it.
Yes, you were.
Yep. So, and I growing up, I needed things to make sense. I still do. I need to understand why. And Bubba would always come up with some kind of explanation where it couldn't be proved necessarily, but it couldn't be disproved. So it would be enough for me where I could take what he said, be okay with it, and continue. Yeah, and continue watching the movie. Because whenever that would happen, the movie would stop. It would have to stop. I would need to know why. So I think you've kind of taught me this skill where I come up with explanations.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. No, I appreciate that. And this movie was also a guidebook for parenthood.
What? The amount of times you come at me with an axe, you'd think you'd be locked up.
Listen, if you haven't been chased with an axe, what are you going to do when you actually get chased with an axe? Like, you don't know, right?
True. You've got a point there.
Yeah, absolutely. Can we talk about the visuals and the cinematography and stuff like that?
Yes,
This is such a big subject. This is it's one of my favorite things about Kubrick movies.
Oh, how long have we been talking so far?
Hour and 10. This is brilliant.
This is awesome.
We might have to make this a two-parter. I don't know.
Might.
We'll see.
We really might.
Yeah. But it's so worth talking about.
Absolutely.
How would you describe Kubrick's visual style in this movie? I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, okay. Yes, that's good you said that, Earl. Anyway, sorry. The Shining. Come on, Bella, focus.
Yeah, The Shining.
It's so hard. He has a very it's you're a fly on the wall in this. I feel he wanted to show the space of the hotel, how large it was, and Kubrick's style or Kubrick's vision in this. I think he uses a lot of wide shots, long shots.
Long shots, wide
Right.
shots, yeah.
Yeah. So where you can see the room. So there's varying degrees of shots. There's close-ups, which is usually like this would be considered a close-up where I am now. Shoulders and then the head. That's a close-up. An extreme close-up would be a shot of an eye or a nose or a hand, things like that. A long shot would be where you can see the whole person in frame, and an extreme long shot would be where you can see the person and their immediate surrounding area. So Kubrick uses a lot of extreme long shots in his films, and he uses his close-ups very sparingly, which I think is interesting. It seemed important to him that you could see the hotel as well, which I think is why the hotel feels so much like a character, is because Kubrick is showing you so much of it. I think that stands out to me as far as his cinematography, or the cinematography in this movie. That stands out to me.
Yes. Yeah, I think I would agree. I love his use of light. Kubrick was a film photographer before he started doing movies, so he has a really good eye for light. There's not a lot of stuff that goes on in a Kubrick movie that happens in the dark. It may be dark around the character. It may be dark in the scene, but that character is always extraordinarily well lit. He wants you to see every detail of every character. He wants you to see every emotion. He wants you to see every facial twitch, every bit of movement. And I think that's one of the things that I love about Kubrick. It's not, what's going on there? Like, he doesn't want any mystery there. He wants you to know that this is terrible, and there is terror, and what's going on with all of that.
That's so interesting, because the fact that he does show everything in such excruciating detail, it's almost ironic, because you really have no concrete sense of what's going on. You know what's happening is terrible. He's made that clear, and he's laying everything out for you, but you have to put the pieces together. I think that's genius. That's a great point.
Yeah, like every scene is like pretty bright.
Even when Jack is chasing Danny in the maze, it's still well lit.
Well lit, absolutely. Everything's dark around them, and the snow is, glinting off the light and all that stuff. But it's all in the light. There's nothing that's obscured. And that's, I think, where you mentioned the fly on the wall thing is like, you can see everything that's going on. And I think that's what Kubrick wants you to feel. Again, it's about immersion into whatever thing you're watching. It's not like a 2-camera shot where it's a camera conversation back and forth. It's generally when you're watching them, and not exclusively, but generally when you're watching them have that conversation.
Yes. I think that
right.
Also creates a sense.
He does switch it up, but
he does. But you're right. For most of the scenes, you're set back a bit. I would say Kubrick shows you more than most films. I think that also creates a sense of helplessness, and that goes back into how we believe that this film is from Danny's perspective. He's just helpless, and he's watching this from the outside, but he can't do anything.
It's just so good visually, and he's such an artist with every shot. Like, he really is. Every shot's beautiful in that movie and just tells the story in the shot. I'm constantly impressed by Kubrick's directing and camera work and all that stuff. Just incredible. It really is. Were there any standout scenes for you, cinematography wise?
I think that scene where Jack is in his office, that room with the typewriter, and he's bouncing the ball off the wall. For a long time, I didn't like that scene. I didn't understand why it was in it. And I think it grew on me. He's showing you Jack. He's showing you how Jack works or doesn't work. He's showing you the frustration. It initially kind of just seems like he's having fun, messing around, getting his juices flowing. But the more I watch it, the more I see anger in every throw. And
Yeah. Oh,
the
he's
more
like
he's
whipping
whipping
him
it.
off. Yeah.
Side note, Jack Nicholson was a baseball player, I think. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think he wanted to be a baseball player. Yeah.
Yep. But Jack Nicholson does a great job with that, where he shows that anger, and then I'm worried that he's gonna hurt the hotel. It's such a weird feeling of like, oh, what if he like makes a hole in the
Cuffs the
wall or
walls.
something?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's not giving you a lot of information, but he's showing you a lot.
Yeah.
But you don't. Is something gonna happen? Is this important? I think scenes like that where it's showing just characters doing their thing, I think those are key to building suspense. So I think that's one of my favorite shots is Jack throwing the ball.
Yeah.
How about you?
I think, well, it hits me on a number of different levels, but I think the shot, well, the multiple shots of following Danny behind the big wheel
Yes.
and how that is whatever, depth of lens you use or whatever, it really puts you into the driver's seat, even though it's like a third person kind of thing. But you're feeling what that's like for Danny to go through that hotel. There's the sound and stuff, which we'll get to in a couple minutes, but those shots were really well crafted. And also the panning shot of them walking with Stuart and the family walking through the hotel. It's just such a wide, long shot, and it moves so smoothly, and you feel like you're there with them. And even that shot is taken somewhat low, I think, height-wise. So you're kind of getting that I'm on a tour kind of thing. Like you're feeling smaller and led around. And I thought that shot was very, I think it's set up a lot of the feel of the movie.
The tone.
Yeah, the tone. Yeah, I thought that was really good.
Wow. Yeah. Awesome.
So any visual effects or anything that stood out?
There aren't.
It wasn't really an effects heavy movie.
I will say one really memorable shot was when Jack is in the dry goods area and the camera's looking up at him. That's been used time and time again.
That was an innovative shot. Yeah, it was very innovative. And it's been referenced in other movies too. I'll have to come up with some examples, but I've seen it a number of times in a number of movies, but I don't think anybody had really done that before. I think that was mostly due to the size of the equipment at the time.
Oh, interesting.
And before that, like nobody had really, like, how do you get underneath somebody to do something like that? And I think that was like a hard thing to do, but they pulled it off, and it was just fantastic and very effective in looking at Jack. And you know what I mean? It read his expressions well. It was upside down and kind of like it was just so well done. And the way you were able to have that perspective, I thought was fantastic.
I agree. And that reminds me of something else that's interesting is Kubrick uses mirrors a lot in this movie.
Yep.
And I think, he's not, it's not a mirror, but that the door is, it's metallic, it's very shiny. And I think using the mirrors with Jack during these supernatural episodes, it's interesting. I don't quite have like a reason or an explanation for it, but it's, it's a choice. It's something that people notice, that I notice. But that scene specifically, I think it's showing the two sides of Jack. I think it's showing, the dirty underbelly. If you want to take it literally,
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's great. And, the mirror was also used in that bathroom scene.
With Danny.
With 237.
Oh, yes.
With the old lady and Jack.
Yes.
Yeah, so because he's like, making out with the young, beautiful spirit or whatever. And then he looks in the mirror and sees it's this old decaying hag. And that's like the reality moment. The reality is when he's looking in the mirror.
Oh, I love that. I was I was also thinking in the beginning of the movie when Danny talks to Tony for the first time, it's in the bathroom mirror.
Talking in the mirror. Yeah. That's the reality, I guess, coming back. That's very interesting. I hadn't thought of that one either, but that's
I
excellent.
love that. Every time we talk about this movie, we
Something
find
new
something new.
comes up.
That's magic.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, this movie it's over 50 years old and we're still...
Yeah.
Wait, 50?
No, it's not
40.
50. No, it's 40.
45 years old.
45 years old. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Incredible. I'm sure people who know more than us on this. I'm sure there's...
Absolutely.
But I like to keep watching the movie and I like to keep exploring it and digging through it and finding new stuff. It's always fun. And it's always fun talking to you about it because we always come up with new things.
Yeah.
So and we're constantly like sending each other like little articles or whatever and talking about the movie, about The Shining, which is just ridiculous, but it's really fun.
We really are.
That's great.
It's all the time.
Yeah. Kind of piggybacking on that, we should probably talk a little bit about the sound and the music and stuff like that. So I have some thoughts and observations on things. Do you have anything you want to talk about?
Yes. We talked in the last podcast how the music was very effective because you didn't notice it. In this film, there's these big orchestral, or I don't even know what it is, but the opening...
There is some orchestral stuff. Yeah, there is. Yeah. So the opening is like more of like a chant kind of thing. But
it has the dun, 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 like that.
Yeah. Yes.
It's a huge sound. It always scares me at the beginning of the movie. It always sets the tone so well because it's huge, it's menacing. You don't really know what it is. I'm not sure. Do you know what instrument it is?
I don't. We can find out. I'll throw up a pop-up here or something, or over there on her side.
But that's kind of the thing is, it's huge, it's mysterious, it's menacing, it sets it up so well, and it's paired with those huge shots of the landscape surrounding the Overlook, and you can see the little Volkswagen Beetle climbing up the mountain.
Yeah.
And
the little yellow Volkswagen.
Yeah, and it feels, that music, it gets into your bones. I remember watching it for the first time, and I was immediately scared. This was... Yeah. I remember
looking ominous. Like,
yes, I remember looking at you, and you were like,
yeah. That's so great.
I could talk forever, but I'm anxious to hear some of your opinions.
Yeah, thank you. So the one thing that sticks out for me is the heartbeat that's constantly going through the movie. Be it Danny's big wheel going on the rug, off the rug, on the rug, off the rug, creates sort of a heartbeat kind of sound. And then he has like a heartbeat rhythm going during scenes like with the bathroom and, where he's in 237. And there's like this constant heartbeat theme that prevails throughout the movie. And it's just, it makes your own heart kind of do that. Like you're feeling that, and it's just so effective. And that would be non-diegetic sound. When we talk about diegetic sound, it's sound that's natural within the movie, and then there's sound that's added to the movie externally, either a soundtrack or sound effects or, whatever that the characters can't hear. So that heartbeat is non-diegetic sound.
But sometimes it is diegetic, like with Danny's big wheel.
Yes.
Which is interesting.
But they work in harmony together. They work very well, and the similarities there are known, and it's meant to draw you in further. I mean, to bring people in with that, I think, is a very ingenious tool, and it's not done in a way where it's kind of muffled.
It's not overt.
It's not overt, but it's part of like the background of things, like your own heartbeat is. And I thought it was brilliant the way he implemented that.
I think that just almost confirms my theory that the hotel is like a living, breathing thing.
Living, breathing thing, yeah.
It has a heartbeat.
That's the heartbeat of the hotel. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so interesting.
That's so great. I'm just kind of looking at my notes. We have so many notes. I think more of our notes are just, I think we've covered a lot of it. How would we evaluate the direction of the movie? It was masterful. The screenplay was extremely well written. The dialogue was incredible.
Perfect.
Absolutely perfect. The thing that we should touch on is how much of a legacy this movie has created.
It's referenced constantly. I was doing some research and I was looking through like lists of Shining references, and it was pages and pages and pages, and it was like, oh my god, it's referenced constantly, spoofed on constantly, and it's in many different forms of media. I'm just looking at my notes and I have a few written down. The most prominent one that I think a lot of people have seen is in Ready Player One with the Shining sequence, which
yes,
I was thrilled to see that. I forget how old I was, but I was younger and I was still feeling kind of like I couldn't connect with people on movies because I enjoyed these older movies, like 70s and 80s. So it was really cool for me to see it in Ready Player One, because I was like, oh my god, that's like one of my favorite movies, and it's there. And then it's also in video games in Fallout 76, which I have not played.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Friend's house. Wow.
Yeah, which is a fairly faithful recreation of the Overlook Hotel, called the Torrance House, which is really cool.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. And then one of my personal favorite shows, Bob's Burgers, which is riddled with film references. It's in the episode Crawl Space, which I think is the first or second episode ever. And Bob gets trapped behind the walls of his house, and his daughter Louise gives him a little nightlight called Kuchikopi, and he starts talking to the nightlight, and it's like that conversation between Grady and Jack.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
Which is hilarious. And honestly, that's what hooked me on Bob's Burgers. I was like, oh my god, that's awesome.
Yeah,
there's no way I can't watch this show. And that is like not even 1% of the references.
Yeah, you'll see like people have the same carpet that's in the Overlook Hotel.
The pattern,
the pattern, and you'll see the houses number 237, and you're gonna find it all over the place. So if you watch The Shining and pay attention to these little ridiculous things, you're gonna see them everywhere.
It's an inside joke in all of media. So watch The Shining and get in on the joke, because we want to laugh with you.
It's so worth it. Yeah. And we talked about a lot of like the techniques and stuff that have been used. We also wanted to mention like sequels and related media. So Dr. Sleep is based on a novel by Stephen King, which was a sequel to The Shining. We kind of touched on it a little bit before, but kind of want to, if you could fill us in a little bit more.
It follows Danny in his adult life. He embraces his gift, The Shining, and it follows, I believe he goes back to the hotel, and he's dealing with other groups who have The Shining as well, but use it for nefarious purposes. It's interesting. I think it's worth watching if you're a Stephen King fan. If you're a Stanley Kubrick fan, not so much. But if you just like the story of The Shining, I'd say it's worth watching. It's starring Ewan McGregor.
Ewan McGregor. He's a good lad.
He's a good lad. I like him a lot. And he's a good actor. So I would say it's worth watching. It's it's part of The Shining legacy, and I think that alone is worth something. And the Dick Halloran makes an appearance. Unfortunately, Scatman and Crothers had passed by the time this was made, but the person who they cast for it, I don't remember his name. He did a really good job with Halloran's mannerisms and things like that.
Oh yeah, I mean it was nice for me. It was nice to see the Overlook recreated and on screen somewhere, anywhere, which was kind of cool. While it was cool to see like some of it, I was just kind of like, it's not quite there, but almost like pretty freaking good. So I wasn't wild about the movie, but as a Stephen King or / Shining fan, it is worth watching just for that kind of stuff and just as a point of reference. I do want to kind of shout out Room 237, the documentary. It's focusing on a lot of like theories, interpretations, conspiracy theories, and all kinds of like crazy stuff. Some of it's really out there. Some of it's like you kind of go, oh, okay, maybe, but it gives you a lot to think about. And if you don't have anybody who wants to have a conversation with you about The Shining, it's probably something good to watch just to kind of get your own mind going and kind of engage your brain with the whole thing. It's worth checking out.
But we will always talk about The Shining with you, whoever you are.
We are always here to talk about The Shining.
Yes,
it's part of our DNA.
absolutely.
But I do recommend the Room 237 as the documentary Room 237. I'll try and put links at least to info on this stuff in the descriptions.
I just wanted to share a fun fact. One of my favorite fun facts about the movie.
Oh, yeah.
So it's about Room 237, which is really funny. Room 237, as we mentioned, you'll see it on like for time. You'll see it as house numbers, license plates. You'll see a lot of things. But in the book, it was actually Room 217. The reason
217. That's correct.
Yeah. And the reason they changed it was because the hotel that The Shining was being filmed in had an actual room 217, and the hotel management was worried that guests wouldn't stay in the hotel if in that room.
Okay, well, is this the Stanley Hotel? Is that what we're talking about? Because there was I think 2 or 3 hotels that were inspirational for the Overlook. 3.
It was the hotel. Was the inside of the Overlook a set?
So I watched a video yesterday, and right near Yosemite National Park, there's a hotel there that the interior of the Overlook was based on.
Based on, okay.
None of it was actually filmed in a hotel. It was filmed on soundstage in England. But when you see video of this, I'm going to link to that guy's video, the tour of the hotel. Like, so whatever you think about his video, whatever, okay, but that I'm not promoting him or his channel or anything. I just want you to be able to see this hotel. But it looks like the Overlook Hotel. The elevators,
so scary.
The big rooms, it's pretty crazy. I got goosebumps watching it yesterday.
That's
but
awesome.
It's worth taking a look at. But I'll put a link to that hotel also, and probably a little blurb here, something popping up, the name of the hotel. But then part of the story was also from the Stanley Hotel.
That's in Oregon, right?
No, it's in Colorado.
So wasn't there something in
Oregon? Is Timberline Lodge.
Okay.
Which was on Mount Hood in Oregon, was the basis for the exterior of the hotel.
Got you.
Okay, so that was the basis for the exterior. The Stanley Hotel, part of the story of the weird things that happened, inspired The Shining. And the interior was this other hotel near Yosemite.
Okay, so I don't know which hotel was worried about it.
I believe it was the Stanley.
Okay, most likely.
Okay. Yeah, but it was never room. The point being, and I'm sorry to
No, I love those tangents.
To go on a side quest.
Side quest?
A side quest. Yeah, so I believe it was the Stanley Hotel at room 217. Hold on, I'm going to read something here. Okay, so it's the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, the Timberline Lodge in Mount Hood, Oregon, and the Ahwahnee Hotel in Yosemite National Park.
Okay.
Were all used as inspiration for The Shining. Yeah, the Stanley Hotel, it did feature a hedge maze,
nice.
Which was added to the horror movie. There's a Shining suite in the caretaker's cottage. Is a recreation of 237 from the movie. Oh my God.
That's so cool.
Oh my God. Timberline Lodge was the exterior of the Overlook Hotel where the movie was filmed in Mount Hood in Oregon.
Okay.
And the Ahwahnee, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, the interior of the Overlook was inspired by that hotel. And the Great Hall and staircase in the movie were inspired also by that hotel.
Wow.
So thank you very much. So it's an interesting story just about how they created the hotel itself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you see the very beginning, when they're circling over the hotel, there's no hedge maze. It's a lot smaller looking than, yeah.
It's
So,
awesome.
but there's a lot of lore around this whole thing in general. Apparently the Wendy hotel is like outrageously expensive to stay even for a night.
Really?
Like, but I would go to visit. Yeah. Like if I were happened to be, I would go to visit. Yeah, I would go there. And I'm less interested in the Stanley, and I don't know if I might have been to Timberline Lodge. I can't remember.
That's cool.
I don't know. But anyway, Timberline Lodge in Oregon it's a national monument. Not a monument. I don't know. It's a national something.
It's important.
But it's important.
And there's a ton of stories about that hotel as well, just aside from The Shining. But that is like the stories of that hotel were
the Stanley?
Yes.
The Stanley Hotel. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's considered a haunted hotel in the whole
thing. There's a bunch of
stuff, but
which is really cool.
Yeah. So I'm going to try and put links to all that stuff in here, so you guys have some resources to dig into and fun stuff like that.
Overall, we hope you enjoy The Shining for what it is. It's great. I love it.
It is. And we hope you guys get something out of this. I mean, we want this to be a space where not just us, I mean, maybe we have a little different perspective on stuff, or just, food for thought and stuff to think about. And we just want to share that enthusiasm with you guys. So, this isn't meant to be an educational, although we hope you learn something. But it's meant to be just to kind of open up your mind and create some discussion and stuff like that. And just, if you just want to talk about The Shining, or hear people talk about The Shining and go, oh, that guy's an idiot.
Larry, just between you and me, we got a very serious problem with the people who are taking care of the place. They turned out to be completely unreliable assholes.
You go, she's really smart or whatever. Like that's what we're here for. We want to create conversation, create dialogue, get your mind going, and get you, we always say this, where there's darkness outside, we want it to be light in here. And, we want to make this a fun place to be. So we all, we do really appreciate anybody who's checking this out. If there's anybody checking this out.
We're just talking to ourselves.
We're just talking to ourselves pretty much, which we're okay with too.
Yeah.
So, but if you did like this at all, please, like, subscribe, whatever you need to do, smash that, whatever the modern thing is to say on
Don't say
all that stuff. Don't smash the subscribe button.
You can
squish it.
Okay, there we go.
Squish the subscribe button, please.
Perfect.
Squish it. Okay, perfect. And smash that like button.
Just don't say smash.
No smash. Click on the like button.
Well, when you say smash that, it's a little
smash that. Yeah, whatever. I don't know. I'm old. You have to give me grace. Like, you have to be nice to me because I'm old.
You're just difficult.
Just remember, people, when you're kids, you got your kids now, you can be mean to them, but remember, they get older, and then you get old, and you might need their help. Be careful. Life lessons.
I just take him out of the nursing home for this. He goes right back.
Just wheel me right up, put me back in the closet, and I'll go to sleep until the next show. So this is really fun. I had a great time talking to you, Bella, as always.
Me too. Thank you.
Thank you. So, and again, we appreciate anybody who's taken the time or wasted their time watching this or whatever, but we appreciate it. And we're just here to, like I said, create conversation and have some fun. So
yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we're always interested in your guys' theories, questions, anything you feel like we missed or you want to talk about more, or just whatever, let us know. We're always willing to come back and talk about these. So, at some point I'd like to have like guests on and stuff and talk about stuff, but we'll figure that out. But anyway, we're most appreciative, like I said, of you guys. And I'm Bubba, and I'm
Bella,
Bella.
and and Laszlo's here somewhere, and
He's
Harley the dog will introduce you
gallivanting.
to at some point. Yeah, he's a gallivanter. That's what he does. If you were Laszlo, you'd be gallivanting.
Yeah,
So,
if I was that
anyway.
naked,
You're instantly gallivanting, right? You don't even have a choice.
it's just everything is a gallivant.
No matter what, you wake up naked, you're gallivanting.
Live, breathe, gallivant.
Live, that's a good shirt, yeah. That's excellent. Eyes on film.
Live, breathe,
gallivant.
gallivant.
Gallivant. All right, folks. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye.
Awesome. Oh, you're still recording?